Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. We are pleased to welcome you sa press conference ng Philippine Statistics Authority para sa 2023 fourth quarter and full year 2023 performance of the Philippine economy ngayong ika-13 ng Enero 2024. Ako po si Angeli Aicardo, ang inyong host para sa press briefing na ito. Para po sa ating guests na nais makibahagi sa ating talakayan, ang event po na ito ay live streamed sa PSA Facebook page at ang mga updates naman po ay tweeted sa PSA Twitter account gamit ang hashtag PHGDP. Kaugnay po nito upang ibahagi ang mahalagang impormasyon o updates ng ating ekonomiya, ikinararangal ko pong ipakilala ang ating mga resource persons para sa press conference ng 2023 fourth quarter and full year 2023 performance of the Philippine economy. Sila po ay sina Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan ng National Economic and Development Authority at si National Statistician and Civil Registrar General Undersecretary Claire Dennis S. Mapa ng Philippine Statistics Authority. Nais din po namin kilalanin ang presensya ng iba pang mga opisyal ng NEDA at PSA na kasama po natin ngayon. Mula po sa NEDA, nandito po sina Undersecretary for Legal Affairs and Special Concerns Melbourne Pana, OIC Director of the National Policy and Planning Staff Desiree Joy Narvaez, OIC Assistant Director of the National Policy and Planning Staff Generose Manlangit, and OIC Director of the Development Information Staff Frances Fatima Cabana. Good morning po. At mula naman po sa PSA, kasama po natin ngayon ang Deputy National Statistician ng Sectoral Statistics Office, si Dr. Divina Gracia L. Del Prado. Good morning. At kasama rin po natin sina OIC Assistant National Statistician for Macroeconomic Account Service, Mr. Mark Pascasio, at si OIC Assistant National Statistician for Economic Sector Statistics Service, Ms. Rachel Laksa. Good morning. Ngayon, atin na pong pakinggan ang ulat ni PSA Undersecretary Claire Dennis S. Mapa.
Magandang umaga sa ating lahat. Ang Philippine Statistics Authority mag-uulat ng estado ng ekonomiya ng bansa sa ika-4 na quarter at kabuuang taon ng 2023. Ang Gross Domestic Product o GDP ng Pilipinas ay nagtala ng pagtaas na 5.6% sa ika-4 na quarter ng taong 2023. Ito ay mula sa naitalang 7.1% na pagtaas sa parehong quarter noong nakalipas na taon. Sa kabuuang taon ng 2023, ang GDP ay nagtala ng pagtaas na 5.6%. Ito ay mula sa naitalang 7.6% noong taong 2022. Ang Gross National Income o GNI ay nagtala ng pagtaas na 11.1% sa ika-4 na quarter ng taong 2023. Gayon din, ang net primary income from the rest of the world ay tumaas ng 97.7% sa ika-4 na quarter ng taong 2023. Sa kabuuang taon ng 2023, ang GNI ay tumaas ng 10.5%. Samantala, ang net primary income ay tumaas din ng 96.6% sa kabuuang taon ng 2023. Sa seasonally adjusted national account sa ika-4 na quarter ng taong 2023, ang GDP ay nagtala ng quarter-on-quarter na pagtaas na 2.1%. Sa kabilang dako, ang GNI ay nagtala ng 2.8% quarter-on-quarter na paglago sa parehas na period. Ang mga pangunahing sektor ng ekonomiya na agriculture, forestry and fishing, industry at services ay nagsipagtala ng pagtaas na 1.4%, 3.2% at 7.4% respectively. Sa kabuuang taon naman ng 2023, ang agriculture, forestry and fishing, industry at services ay nagsipagtala ng pagtaas na 1.2%, 3.6% at 7.2% respectively. Sa seasonally adjusted GDP, ang services ay nagtala ng pinakamataas na paglago sa mga pangunahing sektor na may 3.2% quarter-on-quarter basis. Sinundan ito ng industry ng pagtaas na 0.4% at agriculture, forestry, and fishing na bumaba naman ng 0.02% quarter-on-quarter basis. Sa ika-4 na quarter ng taong 2023, ang per capita GDP ay tumaas ng 4.4%. Ito ay mula sa pagtaas na 5.8% sa parehong quarter noong nakalipas na taon. Ang per capita GNI at per capita household final consumption expenditure ay parehong nakapagtala ng pagtaas ng 9.8% at 4.1% respectively. Sa kabuang taon ng 2023, ang per capita GDP, per capita GNI at per capita household final consumption expenditure ay nakapagtala ng pagtaas ng 4.3%, 9.2% at 4.3% respectively. Sa naitalang pagtaas ng GDP na 5.8% sa ika-4 na quarter ng taong 2023, ang services sector ay nagtala ng may pinakamataas na kontribusyon na 4.5 percentage points. Ito ay sinundan ng industry na nagtala ng contribution na 1.0 percentage point, habang ang agriculture, forestry, and fishing ay nakapag-ambag ng 0.1 percentage point sa kabuuang pagtaas ng GDP. Sa paglago ng ekonomiya na 5.6% sa kabuuang taon ng 2023, ang agriculture, forestry, and fishing, industry, at services ay nagsipagtala ng kontribusyon na 0.1 percentage point, 1.1 percentage points, at 4.4 percentage points respectively. Sa 16 na sektor ng GDP, ang accommodation and food service activities ay nagtala ng pinakamataas na paglago na nasa 19.2% sa ika-4 na quarter ng taong 2023. Ito ay sinundan ng mga sumusunod: other services na tumaas ng 11.9%, financial and insurance activities na tumaas ng 11.8%, at mining and quarrying na tumaas naman ng 10.3%. Sa kabuang taon ng 2023, ang accommodation and food service activities ay nagtala ng pinakamataas na paglago na nasa 23.4%. Ito ay sinundan ng other services na tumaas ng 20.9%, transportation and storage na tumaas ng 13.1%, at financial and insurance activities na tumaas ng 8.9%. Ang mga sektor na may pinakamalaking contribution sa pagtaas ng GDP sa ika-4 na quarter ng 2023 ay ang mga sumusunod: financial and insurance activities na nag-ambag ng 1.1 percentage points, wholesale and retail trade, repair of motor vehicles and motorcycles na nag-ambag ng 1.0 percentage point, at construction na nag-ambag ng 0.6 percentage point. Sa demand side, ang imports of services ay nagtala ng pinakamataas na paglago na 21.0% sa ika-4 na quarter ng taong 2023. Ito ay sinundan ng durable equipment na tumaas ng 14.6%, exports of services na tumaas ng 12.3%, at construction na tumaas ng 10.1%. Sa kabuang taon ng 2023, ang volubles ay nagtala ng pinakamataas na paglago na nasa 28.2%. Ito ay sinundan ng imports of services na tumaas ng 25.7%, exports of services na tumaas ng 13.6%, at construction na tumaas naman ng 9.0%. Sa ika-4 na quarter ng taong 2023, ang mga sektor na may pinakamalaking contribution sa pagtaas ng GDP sa expenditure side ay ang mga sumusunod: household final consumption expenditure na nag-ambag ng 4.0 percentage points, construction nag-ambag ng 1.3 percentage points, at durable equipment na nag-ambag ng 0.8 percentage point. Samantala, para sa kabuuang taon ng 2023, ang may malaking contribution ay ang mga sumusunod. Household final consumption expenditure na nag-ambag ng 4.1 percentage points, construction na nag-ambag ng 1.3 percentage points, at durable equipment na nag-ambag naman ng 0.5 percentage point. Ang Philippine Statistics Authority ay malugod na nagpapasalamat sa inyong pagdalo sa National Accounts Press Conference para sa ika-4 na quarter at kabuuang taon ng 2023. Salamat at magandang umaga sa ating lahat.
Maraming salamat po, Yusek Mapa, para sa ulat ng 2023 fourth quarter and full year 2023 performance of the Philippine economy. Ngayon, atin naman pong pakinggan si NEDA Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan para sa pahayag niya ukol sa 2023 fourth quarter and full year 2023 performance of the Philippine economy.
Colleagues in government, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Today, we are pleased to see that our economy has sustained its growth, expanding by 5.6% in the fourth quarter of 2023, resulting in a GDP growth rate of 5.6% for the entire year. While this growth is below our target of 6 to 7% for 2023, it keeps us in the position of being one of the best performing economies in Asia. Among those that have already released their quarter 4 2023 GDP growth figures, we follow Vietnam with 6.7%, while surpassing China 5.2% and Malaysia 3.4%. More importantly, our full year GDP for 2023 is now 8.6% higher than pre-pandemic levels. Moreover, the Q4 economic performance validates the strategies and policy directions outlined in the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028. Household spending year-on-year grew faster in Q4 versus the growth in Q3. We welcome the robust growth in spending for restaurants and hotels, transport, and recreation, reflecting the improvements in the labor market and steady growth in remittances. However, we are concerned about the low growth in food spending due to high food prices, though inflation has moderated in recent months. Moving forward, we need to relentlessly manage elevated food prices, particularly improving the efficiency and resiliency of the agricultural value chain, utilizing strategic trade policy when domestic production is inadequate, and preventing anti-competitive practices in the marketplace. The growth in total investments accelerated to 11.2% in Q4 2023, a turnaround from the 1.4% contraction in Q3. This resulted in a 5.4% growth for the full year. The robust investment expansion during the quarter was driven by significant growth in fixed capital, particularly the expansion of durable equipment. As I have mentioned in other fora, nothing less than massive sustained investment is needed to achieve high-quality, job-creating growth and inclusion. Thus, a major effort will be made to address critical factors affecting investment decisions. We shall improve the ease of doing business through digitalization and continuous streamlining of policies and regulations, accelerate the execution of game-changing public infrastructure projects, facilitate more private investment in energy and telecommunications, and upskill our workforce. Meanwhile, construction sustained its double-digit growth of 10.1% in Q4 2023, owing to the upbeat private and public construction activities at 7.5% and 14.7% respectively. This sector is expected to benefit significantly from the Build Better More program and the administration's flagship housing program, the Pambansang Pabahay, para sa Filipino Housing Program or for PH. On the other hand, government spending contracted by 1.8% in Q4 2023 from 6.7% growth in Q3 2023. This brings the full year growth in government spending to 0.4%, mainly due to the fiscal consolidation program. Recall that in 2022, the government spent a lot of resources on the vaccination program on top of the elections in May or held in May. The preceding notwithstanding, we will continue to implement the measures started in Q3 2023 to improve program implementation by the government. These measures include adopting the integrated financial management information systems by all government instrumentalities as directed by Executive Order 29 series of 2023. The weak global economy weighed heavily on our export sector, which declined by 2.6% in Q4. The decline came mainly from the deep contraction in good exports, although services exports grew by 12.3%. Goods exports declined by 7.3% for the entire year, but services exports increased by 13.6%. We expect growth in services to maintain its trajectory as international tourism rebounds. We will present international tourists with a pleasant experience, beginning with improved airport services, simplified travel requirements, and most significantly, a diverse range of tourism products. Meanwhile, IT BPM, a big part of the services sector's exports, will benefit from the improvements in our digital infrastructure. The goal is, moving forward, to adapt to the sector's evolving needs by climbing the value chain and providing more complex IT BPM services. We'll expand the digital upskilling program to ensure that there will be competitive pool of human resources for the sector. Growth in industry. Our industry sector moderated to 3.2% in Q4 2023, bringing the sector's full-year growth to 3.6%. The industry posted a meager 0.4% growth in Q4 2023 on a seasonally adjusted quarter-on-quarter basis. Moving forward, the implementation of the 4P8s will fuel growth in the sector. We must encourage expansion in the sector serving the construction industry, manufacturing, mining and quarrying, and EGW or electricity, gas, and water. We will expand skills training programs, both in scope and coverage, to ensure an adequate supply of construction and related workers. The agriculture sector grew by 1.4% in Q4 2023, up from 0.9% in Q3 of 2023, which brings the full year growth to 1.2%. Demand for agricultural output will remain vital, whether for household final consumption, industry inputs, or exports. We will need to improve the sector's competitiveness using R&D, cutting-edge technology, upgraded post-production facilities, value-adding investments, and improved packaging and marketing, to name a few. To ensure we have the fiscal resources to implement the above-mentioned strategies, the government will streamline, digitalize, and enhance our tax administration systems by implementing the Ease of Paying Taxes Act. We will optimize the use of resources by strengthening the linkages of planning, budgeting, and operational units within and among agencies. At the same time, we will work with legislators to enact new revenue-generating measures to build a solid fiscal foundation. In his message last Sunday, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. called for the government to be swift and punctual in its delivery of services and implementation of projects as we work toward realizing Bagong Pilipinas. We will heed the call and work with all our government colleagues to accelerate the implementation of the Philippine Development Plan to sustain the momentum and cement the gains we have made as a people and as a country. Today, the NEDA will release the Philippine Development Report, or PDR 2023, to the public. The PDR identifies the critical programs, projects, and policies began and implemented in the past year or 2023. As an evidence-based report, it evaluates our country's performance concerning the outcome indicators identified in the PDP and includes updates on the Marcos administration's legislative agenda. As a forward-looking document, the PDR considers and anticipates internal and external developments and scenarios. Finally, it presents the lessons we have learned and lays down plans of action to ensure we remain on track to meet our goals by 2028. I urge the public to read the report to see how we have fared and how we see ourselves moving forward this year. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, Secretary Balisacan. Dumako na po tayo sa bahagi ng open forum. Pero bago po natin simulan, nais po muna naming pasalamatan ang lahat ng press at media partners na kasama po natin ngayon sa press briefing. Para po sa maayos na pagsasagawa ng ating open forum, narito po ang ilang mga paalala. Para po sa ating mga online participants, maaari po ninyong gamitin ang raise hand feature ng Zoom kung nais po ninyong direktang magtanong sa ating mga resource persons. Kapag kayo po ay natawag upang magtanong, pakisabi po muna ang inyong pangalan at organization. Maaari rin po kayo magpadala ng katanungan gamit ang Zoom chat box. Panatilihin pong nakamute ang inyong mga mic kung kayo po ay hindi pa natawag upang magtanong. Para naman po sa ating mga on-site participants, pakitaas lamang po ang inyong kamay kung kayo po ay may katanungan at hintayin lamang po na kayo ay ma-acknowledge upang magtanong. Kapag kayo po ay natawag, pakisabi po ang inyong pangalan at organization bago ang inyong tanong. Samantala po sa mga press kits, ipapadala po namin ito sa ating online participants via email. And ang printout naman po ng press kits ay ibibigay po ng aming staff para sa mga on-site participants. Ngayon, handa na po tayo sa open forum. For the first question, let's call on Ms. Eileen Mencias from Abante.
Lumago ang ekonomiya ng 5.6% pero ang inflation ay 6%. Maaari ho bang sabihin na tinabla lang at kinain lang nung inflation yung paglago at hindi ito mararamdaman ng karamihan?
No, the growth that we showed, the 5.6%, is in real terms yon. That has already taken into account inflation. So yung inflation na 6% for the full year, no? Medyo mataas pa rin yan compared sa target natin, and expectedly you would have achieve a higher growth kung hindi ganon kataas pa yung inflation. And we actually we have seen that the moderation of inflation from about 4 to 3.9% in the last 2-3 months of the year, no, led to a slight uptick already of consumption spending, household spending. Yung seasonally adjusted spending of the households increase in real terms, no, after adjusting for inflation. No, I could hardly. Could you say it again?
Yung consumption spending kasi, bumagal siya, di ba ho? So, from 5.3, tapos from 5.3 from 7%. So, kung doon mo titignan, paano paano, naramdaman kaya yon ng karamihan, lalo na yung tinatawag ninyong bottom 30?
Oo, ibig sabihin kasi lumaki pa rin yung yung spending pie, no? After adjusting the for inflation. In fact, kung isama mo ang inflation, dapat ang GDP more than 10%, no? Pero we don't count GDP in terms of nominal, no? Kasi we want to take away the inflation kasi yung GDP, yung outputs of goods and services yan, final outputs of goods and services. So dapat tanggalin mo yung impact ng inflation. So, nag-expand lahat yung mga incomes of the broad sectors of our society, no? Of course, some sectors expanded more than others. And ganoon din siguro doon sa households across income groups, no? Kasi ang nangyari is mataas pa rin yung mas mataas yung food inflation kaysa doon sa non-food, mas mataas ang share ng food sa consumption basket ng mga low income groups kaysa dun sa high income groups. Kaya may may hindi pare-pareho yung impact ng inflation across income groups.
Thank you, Secretary. Next question po from Mr. Michael Flores.
By the way, yung may I just add to that one kasi yung kasing sa tanong kanina, nararamdaman ba ng yung paglago ng ekonomiya, no? Makikita mo na yung clearly na yung labor market very robust, no? Ang unemployment rate in November of 2023 was its lowest since 2005, no? So nag-ano na talaga, nag-improve yung economy in a big way, no? So ang talagang major issues lang natin ngayon is improve pa yung quality ng employment. And kaya lagi kong inulit-ulit na no less than massive investments ang kinakailangan natin para mapalago yung high quality employment. Doon mas malaki yung sipa ng growth sa tinatawag nating inclusion.
Thank you, Secretary. Go ahead, Mr. Michael.
Sir, RC, good morning. Mika Flores of Reuters. Sir, if you look at consumption growth, it rebounded after, I think, 6 quarters of decline in the fourth quarter. And you mentioned it was due to a favorable labor market as well as restaurants and hotels opening and getting more clients and generating more revenues. I was wondering if the economy can sustain that kind of consumption momentum given that we're still in a high interest environment and the central bank has indicated last week that it can remain it could keep interest rates sufficiently tight if the economy can absorb higher interest rates and can remain firm in terms of growth. Is that an indicator that the economy can absorb higher interest rates or a higher interest environment?
Yeah. Yung impact kasi ng pag-change ng interest rates is hindi agad ma-feel, no? Yung mga longer term effects niya, mga a few quarters down the line, no? Kaya kung itong mga nakikita natin ngayon na slowing down, no, is possibly the effects of yung mga past increases in interest rates pa, yung early last year at saka yung even 2022. Ito pa yung kasi yung mga when investors delay their investment because they are waiting for the interest rates to go down, that so yung impact na yan could happen. May lag effects. So that's one, and then the effects naman ng inflation, mabilis yun, it affects direct yung household consumptions quickly, no? So yung I suppose that if one do yung tinatawag natin na counterfactual, ano kayang naging performance ng economy if the interest rates were kept low in the past, hindi malaki yung but we were able to manage inflation at the same time. Then based on the evidence that you can find in the literature, the growth would have been faster. Consumption, particularly dun sa consumption spending. No?
Sir, sa government spending naman, I think it contracted 1.8% during the quarter. Apologies if I've missed the reasons, but may I know why did it contract? And is this a one-off? Will you encourage or push government agencies to spend more to help support growth going forward?
Yung the full planned government spending for 2023 kasi is not as high as the one for 2022. Remember 2022 we're still going into, it was an election year, and still we're adjusting to the vaccination programs. So mataas talaga yung spending in 2022. At the same time, we decided to go for fiscal consolidation. Kaya it was intentional na hindi mataas yung growth ng government spending for 2023, because we want to achieve that fiscal consolidation, which means lowering the fiscal deficit at saka yung government debt. No? But still are able to provide enough for social protection, mga ayuda for the poor, at saka yung financing the critical programs of government sa health, sa education, saka sa infrastructure program natin.
Sir, last question on my part, because yesterday the IMF raised its global growth forecast, including the United States and China, and both are major trading partners of the Philippines. May we get your outlook on, on trade this year? Will you expect a rebound compared to the performance that we've seen, this last year?
Yeah, I just saw the report this morning of the IMF. No, the outlook for 2024 is a bit better than in their October report last year. No, and I think that's a good indication, and it's a good thing. Despite the challenges, and if you look at those outlooks prepared by IMF for various countries, it's interesting to note that so looking at the emerging countries, for example, that the Philippines, the outlook for the Philippines by the IMF was the second highest, best among the emerging economies. No? The highest I've seen here is India, 6.5, and they have us at 6.0, and there is no other country that had that. Of course, Vietnam is not here, so maybe if there is another country that might be Vietnam. But among the emerging economies in the world, we, despite our that forecast lower than what we are aiming in government, it's still a very impressive and I think a encouraging indication.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Next question, please. Let's call on Ms. Eileen Mencias.
Follow up on the government spending. You were saying it was part of the fiscal consolidation and the decline of 1.8, sorry. Yeah, 1.8. So it's part of the plan, but isn't government spending in the GAA and it's set in stone, so to speak? Like the GAA of 2023 was higher than 2022, so it's not like it was 1.8% less.
Yeah, the fourth quarter government spending is indeed negative, no? Coming from a very high positive in the third quarter, no? So what has happened is there was a decision on us to speed up the implementation of government programs, no? Especially those affecting the direct government consumption spending, no, do sa mga MOOE at saka mga assistance for the low-income groups, going to the elevated prices, no, particularly sa food. So as I said earlier, uh, while we also want to pump prime the economy further, we are cognizant that we will do it not at the expense of the medium term, no, the longer term, because we don't want those high inflation coming back, and we don't want to, those interest rates also. Higher interest rates coming back as a result of higher inflation. So it's a balancing act, and I think that given what we have achieved, I think that I would say it's quite a successful program.
Thank you, Secretary. Okay, for the next question, let's call on Mr. Clis Laranio from Context PH. Then we will proceed to the Zoom questions. Go ahead.
Sir, I'm just looking for this is past numbers now. I'm looking ahead to 2020, to this year. Given the environment of still high interest rate, and you said it's 6 months, it's 2 quarters ang delay nung impact ng higher interest rates, and then you're looking at El Nino, inflation is probably going to go down because of the base effect, but still, I'm looking at the contribution of agriculture. It's what, 2% for the total economy in 20.
No, it's still about 10% if I get the figures right. It's
Because I'm
about
just looking at
10% of the economy, but much more than that when you count the labor force.
I'm just computing from the contribution. You say it's 0.1 from in the 2023 GDP. So
No,
that if I translate it, it's just 1.8%, right?
No,
sir?
there's a percentage point contribution to the
Contribution.
growth, to the growth,
Yes, sir.
to the growth, not the economy.
Okay. But still, if you it's 5.6, it's still 1.8% of the growth, right? The contribution to the growth.
0.1 percentage point of the 5.6. Yeah.
But what I'm looking at is that this is a low-hanging fruit, basically, the agriculture sector. But you're facing El Nino, and probably the pests are still coming out. So what is the outlook really for 2024? You're still maintaining the growth targets, right, based on the medium term?
Yeah, we are sticking to the 6.5 to 7.5% for now. The DBCC will be meeting soon to given this new data to reassess its programs and assumptions. But the way we see it, I don't think that giving up your ambition this early. It's only the first year of the year, and now you want to say reduce to your 6.5. That's too defeatist. No, I think that we need to work harder, and we think that we are motivated enough to achieve these goals that we have. We as a people have posted. So I think that despite the El Nino, yes, the El Nino is a threat, and so is the external headwinds, like the continuing, the geopolitical tensions out there will continue to be a threat to our growth. But we believe that we have strengths there that we can maximize. We are quite surprised, actually, that agriculture for the entire year, for the full year, was quite impressive at 1.2%. No, despite the problems, supply constraints, and so on. No, We have already put in place, and our government agencies um, are are working hard to address the measures, no, to put in the measures needed to mitigate the impact of the El Nino, not only on agriculture but on the social sector as well, particularly health.
Um, just on the interest rate, uh, when do you when do you want, if it's just up to you, when should interest rate go down so that the economy could benefit and that investments could actually come in?
Well, the BSP, that's the sector of our government that has the mandate to determine the movements of these interest rates. And when they look at the interest rates, of course, they're looking at different things. They're looking at our inflation. They're also looking at how other countries, particularly our trading partners, are uh, are behaving, in relation to interest rates. Because if the interest rate differentials between our country and our and other countries are too wide, then that will cause capital outflow or inflow, no? They take those into accounts in determining the interest rate. And again, um, the intention is to ensure that growth is sustainable in the long haul. So when when the BSP sets the interest rates, it's not just looking at the growth this year, but the growth next year, the growth 2 years from now, and so on. So it's the stability that they are, particularly price stability, that they are pursuing. And in that sense, it's it's a good balancing act also. We don't want our government. It's, if we want to pump prime the economy now, we can do that. We can ask them to print money, or to borrow more, no? But that is we that would come at the expense, of our future.
Thank you,
Sir,
Secretary.
just one other
Okay.
question. You mentioned about external geopolitical risk. What about the domestic political risk? We've seen a former president calling the current president and the other one calling. I mean, then one chamber of Congress bickering with the other one. So what about the political risk? How will it impact our growth? Or it's just noise coming out?
Let's focus on the economy. Right. That's where my competence is, the economics, and let's leave the politics to our
But sir,
politicians.
you mentioned nga,
But
geopolit-
any country that has political instability will hurt its economy. So it's the everybody's. Whether you're Philippines or Thailand or Vietnam, you want us to ensure that that stability is maintained, because at the end of the day, it's what determines major decisions in relation to investment. So
Okay. Thank you very much, Secretary. Sa susunod naman pong mga katanungan, dumako na tayo dito sa Zoom chat. The question is addressed to Yusek Mapa. This is from Mr. Ted Cordero of GMA News. Yusek, why did the slower inflation seen in the last 3 months of 2023 and the holiday season fail to drive the economy in the fourth quarter, slower than Q3 and making the full year growth below target?
Well, I think it was answered by Secretary Balisacan that the impact of inflation, of course, directly is on the household final consumption expenditure, while it grew in the fourth quarter relative to the other quarters. It's a slowdown, particularly in 2022. So nakita natin na yung impact niya doon sa food expenditure, no, which is directly affected by inflation. So itong slowdown sa inflation rate na nakita natin ng December, of course we will report the inflation for January of 2024. There is an expectation that it will still follow the downward trend, and we will see the impact on that on the first quarter of 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek Mapa. There's another question po for you. This is from Ms. Kai Ordinario of Business Mirror. Yusek Mapa, what are the growth rates in Q4 and the full year for public and private infrastructure?
Okay, yung quarter 4 natin sa public construction, ano, ito ay nasa 14.7%. On the other hand, yung private construction ay lumago ng 7.5%. For the full year, 2023, public construction grew by 9.7% at yung private construction naman ay 8.6%.
Thank you very much. Okay, for the next question po, let's call on the lady beside Miss Luella. Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Darlene from NNA. For Secretary Balisacan, I understand that household consumption is lower than last year but remains stable, right? What are the factors that we can attribute to this lower but stable household consumption in 2023? Is it because of remittances?
I'll say that again. What are the factors?
Sir,
Okay. All right. Okay, there are two major factors affecting consumption, household final consumption spending. One is the obvious income, no? Income of households, and as you have seen in the other tables of the national income accounts, incomes from all sectors have risen. The labor market has remains robust, and so employment opportunities have grown. So on the other hand, prices are also a major determinant of consumption spending, and we have seen that food prices in particular have remained elevated in the fourth quarter. No? So on the one hand, the elevated prices could have reduced spending, but on the other hand, you have incomes raising those spendings, and the net effect is still a positive effect. Of course, there are other factors, like for example, expectations about the economic outlook could also impact on current consumption. So to the extent that we are now seeing a downward inflation trajectory, and to the extent that that will be that is associated with moderating or slowing interest rate, that could also improve expectations for consumption.
Thank you, Secretary. For the next questions, let's call on Ms. Maki Pulido of GMA7. Then let's have Ms. Ditas Lopez from Bloomberg. Go ahead, ma'am.
Secretary Balisacan, kung halimbawa po pagkatapos itong press conference, tapos makipagkwentuhan ako sa kanto, and then I will tell them na ang sabi po ng gobyerno nitong mga nakalipas na buwan ay gumanda ang ekonomiya natin, nag-expand. Most probably, ang sasabihin po sa akin ng kausap ko, di ko naman naramdaman. So what would you want to tell them, Sec? Lalo na po yung mga hirap pa rin naman, halimbawa magbayad o bumili ng pagkain, magbayad ng pamasahe, ng kanilang rent. For them kasi every time na magsasabi na may ganitong improvement sa economy, for them parang may disconnect. What would you want to tell them, sir?
Okay, let's put this in a broader context. No? The economy contracted sharply in 2020. And if you look at it, di ba sinabi natin kanina that as of the fourth quarter of 2023, at least nakabalik na yung ekonomiya dun sa GDP noong 2019. Can you imagine that? How many years you have lost as a result of that sharp contraction in 2020? So yung mga growth na nakikita natin in the last 1.5 years, pang-recover lang dun sa what we lost. We practically lost 3 years of economic growth. So yun. And it will take time, as the experiences of many countries around us, it will take time because if your income is only 10,000 a month, mag-increase yan ng 4%, 5%. Could you buy now a new tricycle, a new motorcycle? Of course not. No? At the very least, you can improve, buy a little more of your basic needs. But if that continues, if that growth continues year on until, say, itong ginagawa natin sa Philippine Development Plan about 2028, we should be able to reduce poverty from 16% to single-digit level. No? But then, even then, meron pa rin tayong 9% still of our population will be poor. So kinakailangan i-sustain yung growth over the next several years. And more importantly, we have to make sure that that growth is also inclusive, that it's happening across sections of our society and not just among the privileged few. Yun and that's how the PDP is designed. It is an inclusive growth paradigm.
Sec, kanina po nabanggit ninyo na you're going to Congress and ask for legislation for more income generating. Does this mean you're going to ask for higher taxes?
Well, doon sa LEDAC, yung Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council, composing the House leaderships and the executive leadership, represented by our president, they agree on common measures, no, and what to prioritize. And of course, when if you ask for more services, more infrastructure, more health services, hospitals, education, more ayuda, we need to raise revenues. No? One way, of course, is improving the administration of taxes. No? But we can only go so far. We also need to raise additional taxes. Now, the principle of taxation is as you raise taxes, don't make the poor unnecessarily burden, become the so yung may tinatawag nating progressive, no? So those who can afford to pay the tax, they should. For example, taxing idle assets or idle property, mga ganon. Or those assets or goods that are pollutant or so there are many measures or forms of taxes that can be implemented and which are used prominently in many more mature economies that we can also deploy. But again, there's also so much room for improving our tax administration to ensure that the existing tax measures are properly and maximally deployed.
Pwede pong last.
Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Sir, tungkol po dun sa yung statistics, I'm sorry hindi ko pero yung mas malaki yung growth ng service sector compared to our forestry, particularly most especially sa agri. what does this say about our economy na parang ang driving force natin is more on service sa halip po na yung agri?
No, yeah. Clearly, we need to diversify our economy. We need to ensure that we have yung tawag nating broad-based growth that earlier kanina may na-mention na there are low-lying fruits agriculture. No, meron, marami doon, no? And we need to take advantage of those. And kaya nga ang priority ng this administration is improving the productivity of the sector by investing in productivity enhancing measures. No? Now, the good thing about or the positive thing about the services is that the services that we have today are not the kind of services sector that we have 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Now, many of our services sector actually now internationally traded. Yung IT BPM natin, napakalakas yun, no? And the kind of employment there generated is what I call a high quality, no? Hindi yung mas mataas ang sweldo dun kaysa yung di ba? Of course, it's very challenging to work in that sector. We know, but at least the opportunities are here, and there are a lot of room for expansion also in that sector. So even within the services sector, there are high productivity, there are high earning segments, but there are also very highly informal and highly unproductive employment, no? Like peddling cigarettes in the street. That's counted in the services sector, but that's not the kind of job we want for our people, no? So we reduce those kind of types of jobs and generate those more formal sectors that will generate higher earnings, earning opportunities for workers. Manufacturing is one sector where we really have to work harder to regain the prominence of that sector. The reason we are pushing hard for manufacturing is that's in every country that you see, that I see, where there is sustained poverty reduction, rapid reduction of poverty. It's a vibrant manufacturing sector because it's for obvious reason. The quality of jobs there is so much better than anywhere else because the complementary capital complementary to labor is present there compared to in greater amount than in other sectors of the economy. Kaya yung wages there are higher, the quality of jobs better, is the 8 to 5 kind of employment rather than the 1 hour, 2 hour type of employment that you find in many other sectors like agriculture or services. No? Kaya, and I don't think that we have lost manufacturing. We just have to work harder to see what types of manufacturing we can still recover. We have challenges in the manufacturing sector. High cost of energy, for example, is a common complaint, or not? It's a common issue that's raised to us by investors. But we are working hard to ensure that our energy is secure and affordable and also competitive for the manufacturing sector.
Thank you, Secretary. Okay, at this point po, we would like to respectfully inform our media partners that we only have a few minutes left, so we can only accommodate po questions from 3 media partners. So let's call on Ms. Gitas, and then we'll get the question from Ms. Kai sent here via Zoom. Then let's call on Ms. Louisa Jackson from Business World. Go ahead, Ma'am Gitas.
Good morning, Secretary Vitas Lopez from Bloomberg.
Good morning.
You mentioned the need for investments. In your view, which industries realistically could attract incremental investments that are material enough to bolster growth? Thank you.
Which sectors of the economy? I think you need everywhere in the economy. You need a lot of investment in agriculture for warehousing, logistics, transport, both public and private investments. There's that challenge of getting the private sector interested in agriculture. So that clearly you need investment in agriculture to raise productivity there. But you also need investment in industry. A lot of, whether it's as telecom, for mining, for responsible mining, for our green metals, for example, no, for our utilities like water, power, energy, and in the services sector as well. Of course, construction that we keep drumming that up, no? But huge investments needed there. You see how our infrastructure, for example, compares with that of Thailand or even Vietnam, no? So there's a lot of catching up to do so that we can make our industries competitive and able to compete with our neighbors.
Just a follow-up on that, anything that the government is doing that it's not already doing in order to attract more investment?
I think it should be doing what it should have done. This ease of doing business issue has been an issue for how many decades, right? I think that it's this government is making a push for changing the status quo. We believe that digitalization, for example, will help a lot in improving the efficiency of government and the way our public relates with government. For example, how you wish you don't have to go to a government office to pay your taxes, right? That's what should happen, no? Now we are, you can now check in online. Isn't that so good that you don't have to go to the airport early just to check in? Yung mga ganun ba? But there's a lot there that you can improve on using technologies, digitalization. We need to work hard, but those also require a lot of investment, unfortunately. So you want to harness the technology, internet, digitalization. You need to improve our telco, our internet facilities. We need investments there. We need competition there, competition policy there, and properly enforced. No? I think there's a lot that we need to do. We have been lagging far behind from those of our neighbors, but there are other things that are working well with us. I think that we have an advanced service economy powered by digitalization and the internet. I'm talking about IT BPM that can be harnessed to power also our industry, our services, our manufacturing, our agriculture. So, but again, we need to look at these issues in an intergovernmental, whole of government, whole of society approach, because what we have learned, and we emphasize in the Philippine Development Report, is that when you have a segment of the supply chain that's not working, then the entire chain is not expected to work well and to deliver the service that we want.
Thank you, Secretary. Okay, before we call on Ma'am Luisa, let's first get the question from Ma'am Kai Ordinario of Business Mirror. The first question is for Secretary Balisacan. Secretary, are there specific measures in the pipeline to address the contraction in GFCE and avoid that from happening again this year?
Well, yes, I mentioned in our statement that there is uh, a need to improve the coordination among planning, budgeting, and implementation segments of the government cycle and across agencies. And I think that that is very much within reach, as we have demonstrated in the third quarter, when we saw that there is that disconnect between what has supposed to be there, but it's, the implementation, there's problem with the implementation, and we're able to fix that. And I think that our aim is to ensure that that effort is sustained, and that we look at this whole system proactively and learning as we go along. Again, digitalization is an important tool that we can use to improve the whole process. Uh, uh, I think that our ability to use fiscal measures to prime the economy depends so much also on our tax measures, no? Our ability to generate revenues. That's why we also emphasize the tax administration and our efforts to work with Congress toward coming up with new measures that are not pro-growth and pro-inclusivity.
Thank you, Secretary. For the next question, this is addressed to Yusek Mapa. Yusek, what could explain the decline of valuables in Q4?
Okay, yung growth rate ng valuables in during the fourth quarter 2023 is negative 6.3%. Primarily, the major contributor to the decline was the drop in collectibles and includes precious stones and metals. This is one item under valuable that dropped by 9.4%. So this is the main contributor to that negative growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek Mapa. Next question po, Ma'am Luisa.
Hello, good morning. My question is for Yusek Mapa. Yusek, I just wanted to clarify.
Can you speak a bit louder?
Hello, sorry. Good morning. Yusek, if we discount the 9.5% decline in 2020 GDP, is our full year 2023 GDP the slowest since the 3.9 in 2011? I just wanted to ask if this was correct.
Yeah, discounting that huge drop,
Yes.
the last time it was lower than 5.6 was 2011.
2011. Thank you, Yusek. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Dito na po nagtatapos ang ating open forum. Nais po naming muling pasalamatan ang ating resource persons, NEDA Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan at PSA Undersecretary Dr. Dennis S. Mapa. Maraming salamat din po sa ibang opisyal na kasama po natin ngayon from NEDA at PSA. Gayon din po sa ating mga media partners na nakilahok po sa press conference na ito ng PSA para sa 2023 fourth quarter and full year 2023 performance of the Philippine economy. Sana po ay patuloy po ninyo kaming suportahan. Maaari po ninyong bisitahin ang Philippine Statistics Authority website sa www.psa.gov.ph para sa karagdagan updates. Muli, ako po si Angeli Aicardo mula sa PSA. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat.